again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Hi, welcome along to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith. As those were the days with George Mitchell. George, I hope you're well. Which season are we looking at today?
Today it's 79-80, Steve, the second year that we're in the second division with Bill McGarry as our manager. So it's a stabilising season, I would call it, but another one that went down well with the fans entirely. And just the reference, like I usually do, if you're into the music, well, the music of the day, the top of the pops at then was Heart of Glass by Blondie, I Will Survive, Gloria Gaynor, Le Freak by Chic, and Tragedy by the Bee Gees. So some good music there, and also some of the movies. Well, you know, Butch Cassidy, Love Bug, Midnight Cowboy, Easy Rider, all some of them becoming cult movies, really. So that's where we are in terms of the year. In terms of the club, well, Bill McGarry's our manager, Liam McFall is our coach, Bob Rutherford's our chairman, and Bill McGarry came in the previous season and had a big clear out, 12 out and 14 in. Well, this year he didn't have as many, but he still had a clear out. He had 8 out and 10 in, and some of the outs were big names: Irvin Natris, John Blackley, John Bird. You know, people who made names at the club and had to follow in. And I've got to say, not all of that went down well with the fans. But McGarry being McGarry, any criticism, he just used to say, "Well, I'm running this football club, nobody else." So anyway, that's where we are. The season, as usual, with Newcastle starts off with a lot of friendlies. There should be 1 or 2 more pictures, Steve. That's the Gallagher end in front of the scoreboard, where there was always a rousing crowd every match. And it, as you can see, they didn't just get behind the barrier; they stood on the barriers. And that's William McFall sitting in the dugout as our coach, and good servant of the club, Willie. Anyway. So Mick Martin was our captain. There he is, a great guy, and made himself a name at the club, and people enjoyed having Mick there. So we go into the season with 6 friendlies, would you believe? And one of them is even has a program, the Bath City one. I think there may be the pitch. There it is. They actually produced a program for the friendly, which is quite something. And with a 3,000 crowd there, they did work quite well out the game. So then we played Plymouth, Torquay, Exeter City, Blythe Spartans, and Sparta Rotterdam was the last one, which was an interesting game. So as always with Newcastle, always great deal of friendlies at the beginning of the season. And first league game was Oldham Athletic at home, and it was a much look forward to, first game of the season. But fans still weren't persuaded by Bill McGarry that he was on the right track. Only 19,000 at the game. Steve Hardwick, John Brownlee, Ian Davis, Mick Martin, David Barton, John Bird, Alan Shoulder, Tommy Cassidy, Peter With, who would eventually go, Terry Hibbert and Jim Pearson, who would also eventually go. Oldham, a decent side, but very few, no real stars in that team. A couple of names were recognised though. Vic Hallam, who used to be centre forward at Sunderland, and Simon Stainrod, who was a star with Sheffield Wednesday for many years before he went to Oldham. So, is the programme there, Steve?
No, not for that one.
All right, okay. So next, oh no, there wouldn't be. Sorry. The next game is an away game at Preston North End, and having beaten Oldham 3-2, they go away with high hopes that we'll get a result at Preston, and teams are unchanged: Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bird, Shoulder, Cassidy, With, Hibbett, and Pearson. The Preston team includes, of course, one of the people that McGarry sold, John Blackley, the Scotsman, was in the Preston lineup, and their manager was worth a mention, though. At the time was Nobby Stiles, the ex-World Cup character, but they were an average team, about expected to stay about middle of the second division, as we were at the time. But anyway, the beat were 1-0, single goal, right at the death, 88 minutes on a penalty given away by John Bird, and so it was a 1-0 defeat. So that's 1 win, one defeat. So starting the season on a well, even Steven is the best way to describe it. We then go away to Charlton Athletic for the Valley, and a crowd of 6,000. The Valley was a big ground, so God knows what 6,000 looked like at the Valley, but it couldn't have been very nice, very quiet, to put it at least. And our team, with Bill McGarry manager as usual, no changes again. Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bird, Shoulder, Cassidy with Hibbett. And then on the left wing, Peter Cartwright, a lad he'd brought in from North Shields at the start of the season, a local lad. And Peter Cartwright got it out. And Charlton were rebuilding. Their manager was Andy Nelson, an old player of theirs. And they had very few big names in that team. They had a midfielder called Phil Walker, who'd made his name with Manchester City and went south later on, but was on his way out rather than on his way up. But still a good tidy player. Quite a tidy game, end-to-end stuff. Which ended up in a 1-1 draw with Phil Walker, who I just mentioned, scoring for Charlton, and then Tommy Cassidy scoring the equaliser for Newcastle. And as I say, we're just over 6,000 in the ground. There couldn't have been much excitement in that particular game, but a point it was, and keeping us moving in the right direction. The next game is we got drawn in the League Cup against the Mackhams. Now, the Mackhams are going to be it's a derby, it's a tough game anyway, but it's going to be tough because the Mackhams are predicted by the pundits to be one of the promoted sides, and they spent a lot of money, and so we go to Roker Park for the first game, and there it is, and it's quite a game, but it's a sign of the times that we're in the second division, because a derby at Roker Park, 27,658. Normally that would be 50,000, not 20,000. So quite disappointing, but never mind. However, it was a really good game, end-to-end stuff. And the Mackhams take a 19-minute lead through Wilf Rostron, a young star player who ended up in Arsenal eventually. And it looked like they were going to skate through the round by Pop Robson, who was playing for them then, scoring the second goal on 73 minutes. And then lo and behold, Newcastle seemed to wake up, and Davis scored 76 minutes. And then young Cartwright, the North Shields lad, equalised on 83 minutes. So there we were with a first leg score of 2-2 when People hadn't given me much hope, to be perfectly honest. But it was a good game. Sunderland fans, his team, well-known names: Barry Siddall, Joe Bolton, Sean Elliott, Gordon Chisholm. This Wilf Rostron and Pop Robson, of course, forward line. Our team, Gary being faithful to the ones he'd picked, Hardwick, Brown, McMahon, Bird, etc. And he kept Peter Cartwright in the team, and just as well he did, because Cartwright got the equaliser. In the Sunderland team as well, of course, at centre back was Jeff Clark, one of the players that McGarry got rid of the previous season. So anyway, a good fight and draw to keep winning the League Cup. The next game is a home game against Chelsea, and we've McGarry fields an unchanged team. The only difference is that halfway through the first half, Tommy Cassidy has to go off, and Gary Nicholson comes on in place of Tommy Cassidy. This Chelsea team is totally changed. I've not some of the names. The only name that's of any note to me even is Ron Harris, Bomber Harris at fullback. After that, they were all young people coming through. Ian Britton became a star. Trevor Aylott became a star, and Tommy Langley, who was a Geordie in the team. But we beat them 2-1 anyway. We get they took the lead on 17 minutes, but after that they struggled with the height and physical nature of Peter With, which paid dividends, because on the 63rd minute and the 72nd minute, Peter With scored 2 goals to give with the win and result that we'd hoped for. So that was a good result for us. So the next game is the return game against the Mackhams. It's the second leg of the League Cup, and it's even at our home ground, it's still only 30,500 in the crowd, where normally that would be 50,000 plus. End-to-end game, but it ended with the same result as the first game. That's the team. You don't often get the chance to see what's in the programme. I was pleased to find that. Anyway, the scoring all was crammed into the last 20 minutes. Sunderland scored on 74. Bohm scored a header, which I think there's the picture of somewhere. Scored on 78. Then Alan Shoulder put us in the lead on 84. Then right with the last, that's Bohm heading his goal. John, and that's Shoulder scoring as well. Brown scored their equaliser on the 90th minute. So there we were, 2-2, and that's how it stayed after extra time. So we went into penalties, and of course we ended up losing the match 7-6 on penalties, which was the end of our League Cup run that year. But doubly hurtful because it was at the hands of our near neighbours. We could have done without, but never mind. Such is life. The teams that played were virtually the same as played in the first game. We were unchanged. Peter Cartwright again stayed in the team, and Sunderland were unchanged as well, with Jeff Clark still in the team. And an appearance at fullback of Jackie Ashurst, who was to become a stalwart at fullback for them, and of course Pop Robson in the forward line. And a young man called Gary Rowell came on the left side of their attack. Again, as somebody who became a fixture in the Sunderland team for many years, and is now still making his name as a manager. The next game is the away game at Orient, and this is a game that I have to say that certainly in the Gallagher corner, everybody was expecting to get a result, but as we've always known, that being a Newcastle supporter and having expectations and getting what you expect is two different things. Anyway, it's 5,700 at the game at the Matchroom Stadium. Brisbane Road was its old name, and we went with high hopes, and the team, McGarry sticking to his tried and tested with Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Tommy Cassidy, Peter With, Terry Hibbert, and Peter Cartwright. Now, in the Orient team, they had one or two people who were whose playing days were sort of down the, going down the way rather than up the way. Like Mervyn Day, the goalkeeper, who was a top man at West Ham. Tommy Taylor, who was another top defender at West Ham, and Ralph Coates, who they got from Tottenham, who was originally an England winner when he was with Burnley and Tottenham, and he ended up with Leyton Orient. And the manager was Jimmy Bloomfield, the ex-England and Blackpool fullback. It was a one-way traffic. We took the match to them. Alan Shoulder gave it the lead in 8 minutes. Peter Cartwright 26 minutes. Peter With on 30 minutes, and Terry Hibbert on 65 minutes. And right at the death, Billy Jennings playing for them on the left side. Scored a consolation, and we won the game 4-1, which was even better than I think that people expected. The next game is a home game against Leicester City, and we haven't had that good win. Everybody's hoping, because Leicester are being tipped as a sort of middle of the road team as we are. They're not considered as promotion material, but always a good football side. So we get home to Leicester, and the good result away reflects in the crowd, with now 26,400 in the ground instead of the below 20,000 we've been getting. Team unchanged again: Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, etc., and Peter Cartwright still in the team, with McGarry having faith in the bloke he picked. Leicester City come with Jock Wallace as their manager, a real Scottish character as their manager, and one or two stars from other clubs in days gone by. Dennis Rolfe, who was a big star with West Ham. Andy Peake, also a big star with West Ham, and Alan Young, a big star with Everton. Anyway, it was a good game, end-to-end stuff. I remember being at this game. It was an entertaining football game, and we set off well. Alan Shoulder gets a penalty in 18 minutes. Bobby Smith, he's an ex-Spurs centre forward, scored on 34 to equalise. And then, lo and behold, they're silly enough to give us another penalty, and Alan Shoulder scores that, so that's 2-1. And then on 62 minutes, they get another penalty, and Bobby Smith scores the equaliser. And then a few minutes later, Peter Cartwright pops up on the left and bangs in the winner 3-2. So a good, entertaining game and an excellent result in that game against Leicester. And as I say, the Gallagher corner went home happy. They had expected something to happen, but they weren't didn't think it was going to be as good as that. But it was an entertaining game. The next game is a home game against Wrexham. Wrexham's always a tough game, but in terms of second division, they're not regarded as one of the top ones. In fact, if the pundits are right, they're going to have a struggle to stay in this league this season. 27,000 at the game at St James's. We field an unchanged team. Bill McGarry sticks by Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Cassidy, With, Hibbett and Cartwright. Wrexham come with the manager is Mel Sutton, ex-Welsh international, great player, and making a name for himself as a manager. The team includes one or two people who are Welsh internationals, but on their way out. I mean, Mel Sutton is actually player manager because he's actually in the midfield, and Mark Vinter is there. Joey Jones is in the midfield. Gareth Davis is the centre back. Ian Roberts is also a centre back, and they're all ex-Welsh internationals, but on their way down, as it were. Alan Shoulder settles it all with a 57-minute penalty, and we beat Wrexham 1-0. And the Gallagher corner's happy now because with that win, we're now well above mid-table. We're up amongst the upper echelons of the league, which is refreshing because, as I said at the outset, pundits were reckoning that Sunderland were going to be the promotion favourites. So it was good to see us at least in the same frame, as it were, for a while. Our next game is an away game at Birmingham City, and we 19,900 at the game at St Andrews, and McGarry's very loyal, picks exactly the same team as he had in the previous game, and we go to Birmingham, and their manager is somebody we know very well, Jim Smith, of course, who was our manager just a couple of seasons before this, and there's some players in that team that we knew. Colin Todd, Derby and Sunderland player, Mark Dennis and Joe Gallagher, who were from Manchester City, Alan Kirbishley from West Ham, Archie Gemmell, who they got from Preston, who was a Scottish international, and of course on the left side of their attack they had Kevin Dillon, who was ex-player of ours and an ex-Mackham, and Don Givens, who was a great.
Well, Jim Smith and Kevin Dillon both came after this. Yeah, they weren't ex-players because they didn't come to us until the late 80s.
All right, okay. It's just that it comes up with a blue on me paper.
Yeah, but they didn't come until the late 80s. So
right.
We're getting ahead of ourselves on that one, George.
Just a bit, yeah. Okay. Of course we are. Yes, that's right. Anyway, Gary picks the same team, and we get a 0-0 draw. When I read about this game, it was a dour 0-0 draw, and they could have played all day, and I don't think anybody would have scored. However, as far as Newcastle's concerned, the important thing is we still didn't lose, and so we're off to West Ham next. We have a game again at West Ham, and the 23,000 at the game at the Upton Park. West Ham manager's John Lyle, an ex-player of theirs, and their team has got one or two stars in it still. Billy Bonds, Alvin Martin, Ray Stewart, Trevor Brooking, of course, who's still talked about even now. Alan Devonshire, and David Cross on the left side of their attack. And in midfield, substituted in midfield, came on Pat Holland, whose father is part of the England physiotherapy group with the England manager at the moment. Our team, well, Gary, faithful to the people who was picked before, and we go with an unchanged side, and he still keeps Peter Cartwright in, and looks like we're in for a tough time because in 8 minutes David Cross puts West Ham ahead, and on 39 minutes Peter With scores the equaliser, and that's the way it stayed till the end. And another away point, of course, for us is great. You know, it goes down well with everybody because we're not sliding down the league. Although we're because we wouldn't be getting draws, we're not as prominent as we had been. So we come home to a home game against Preston. It's 25,000 at the game. And McGarry, once again, very loyal to the people he picked, and has the same team out. And Preston North End come with Nobby Styles again, still their manager, virtually the same team as we played earlier at Preston. John Blackley, of course, playing with them, and on the forward line as well, they have a young man called Alex Bruce, who, of course, we bought from Preston and then sold him back to Preston later date. So he came on, and the horror for most Geordies on something like that happen is that he's going to score the winning goal. But it didn't happen. It was a pretty, I remember being at this game, it was a pretty miserable game. A 0-0 draw, and I can't even remember an exciting incident in the match, never mind anything else. But still, a 0-0 draw meant it was keeping a mountain time in the league. We weren't sliding downwards. This was the big worry for everybody. And so we get over that, and the next game is a home game against Shrewsbury, and the 21,600 at the game, and once again McGarry loyal to the team. Hardwick, Brownlee, Kenny Mitchell slots into left back because of injury. Mick Martin, David Barton, Stuart Bourne, Shoulder, Cassidy with Hibbett and Nigel Walker. Now Shrewsbury Town have Graham Turner as the manager, ex Luton Town player and manager, and regarded as a good coach, part of the England coaching team at one time, and regarded as a good coach, and now managing Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury have very few big names in their team, but they have one, a centre forward called Sammy Chapman, who came from Stoke, a prolific goal scorer with Stoke, but of course now on his way down, as it were, and but still a troublesome player. Quite a interesting game, end-to-end stuff, but not much in terms of goal threat. And the only goal that came was on the 11th minute was Alan Shoulder again, who's obviously our main goal threat at the moment, and in 11 minutes, and that's the way it stayed right till the end. But Shrewsbury never really threatened with and didn't put under any pressure. So again, a win which pleased everybody because it pushes us just that little bit higher up the league. Next, we're away to Watford, and the expectation is we should be able to get something out of this game. 17,000 at the game, and Bill McGarry picks the same team, except on the left he puts John Connolly instead of Peter Cartwright. But halfway through the first half, Tommy Cassidy gets injured, and Peter Cartwright comes on as a substitute. Watford have one or two people we recognise. Wilf Rostron, for example, who is now on his way from Arsenal into Watford, having been transferred for a lot of money from the Mackhams. Luther Blissett was England centre forward for a while, very challenging sort of player, and led them their line and made Watford a difficult team to beat, to be honest. And however, it wasn't a very fruitful game for us. We did well for the first half, but second half, 72 minutes, Keith Mercer scores. 77 minutes, Luther Blissett adds a second, and that's the way it stayed till the end. It wasn't, and we were never actually in the game, is the honest answer. And we needed to reflect on that, because it was too easy for Watford, is my opinion. We're then home to Cambridge United, and the game which people have hopes for, because Cambridge are already struggling near the bottom of the league, and we're hoping that we should be able to beat them. 24,000 at the game, 24,184 at the game, and McGarry, in his usual way, sticks by his guns and plays the city's usual team: Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Walker, Peter Wraith, Bill Rafferty, and Peter Cartwright. Bill Rafferty's in because there's an injury. Then halfway through the first half, Peter Wraith gets injured, and Tommy Cassidy comes on for Peter Wraith. It's a good game from our point of view. They're playing really, really well. And on 29 minutes, Peter Wraith gives them the lead. 41 minutes just before half-time, Alan Shoulder scores a second. And certainly I remember everybody in the Gallagher corner was expecting it to be at least 2 more in the second half, if not more. But Cambridge came out and fought like tigers in the second half. They weren't going to give it away that easy. And their manager was John Doherty, who was ex-Preston player of some standing. So he was their manager. One or two names in that team. John Cousins on the left side of their attack was very prominent with Birmingham. Jamie Murray, Robin Gibbons, 2 players that came across from Aston Villa. So again, a team which was full of a mixture of young people and older people. But we beat them 2-0, and it was a relatively straightforward victory, much to the relief of the Gallagher corner. We're now off away again to Oldham Athletic, and having beaten them beaten them at home earlier in the season, everybody thought that this would be a straightforward win for us. 11,400 at Boundary Park, and again, Bill McGarry's very faithful to his team with Hardwick, Brownlee, Mitchell, Martin, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Nigel Walker, Peter Wraith, Bill Rafferty, and Peter Cartwright. And in the Oldham Athletic team with their manager is now Jimmy Frizzle, who's an old player of theirs, but a very famous player with Huddersfield Town when Huddersfield were a very prominent team. And Jimmy Frizzle has a good reputation. The team has 1 or 2 ex-Manchester players in. Kenny Clements, who played for Manchester City. Ronnie Blair, who played for and Mark Hilton, who played for Manchester United. Vic Callum, ex-Sunderland centre-forward, still playing for them, as is Simon Stainrod, the ex-Sheffield player. A good game, but a game which we... whatever we did, we couldn't hit the net. And unfortunately for us, on 5 minutes, Kenny Clements scored from a free kick and to give them a 1-0 lead. And that's the way it stayed right to the end. We just couldn't put the ball in the net. It was an even Steven game, but it didn't come out like that for us. So we lost 1-0 to Oldham Athletic, and disappointing, I think, because people had thought we would get something out of that game. We're now at home to Cardiff City, and another team that's in the middle of the league, and depending which side of the Pennines you live, people over there thinking Cardiff are up for promotion, and other pundits were saying, well, they'll be lucky to stay in the middle of the league. Anyway, the Cardiff come, and it's quite a good game, good football game. 23,000 at the game, and McGarry picks his usual team, his usual lineup: Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Martin, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Walker, with Rafferty, and Terry Hibbert comes in. Cardiff City have a manager called Richie Morgan, ex-Welsh international and Swansea player rather than Cardiff player, and have 1 or 2 ex-stars or people on their way out was Ron Healy, the goalkeeper, was an international, and Keith Ponton, Colin Sullivan, Alan Campbell, Billy Ronson, Ronnie Moore, dangerous centre forward, but on his way out. So it was an interesting game, and even Stephen, but settled by a goal from Alan Shola on 39 minutes, made it 1-0, and that's the way it stayed. And frankly, Cardiff didn't really trouble with that much again in that game. So we now go to a friendly. Would you believe? Well, you would believe when
yeah, definitely would.
Except this is slightly special friendly. It's Manchester City bring their team to play in a testimonial for Willie McFall, and nearly 16,000 at the game, which is not a bad crowd for a testimonial on a Tuesday night. And of course, they come to see the guest players, I think, as much as the Newcastle players, because Willie McFall persuades Super Mac, Terry Mack, and one or two others to come and join the team, and it turns into a very interesting night. Now, I remember being at this; it was an interesting game, and we beat them 4-1, but solely on the back of Malcolm McDonald. He still had his pace and frightened the Manchester City defenders to death, especially in a friendly when they were reluctant to put tackles in. He just glided through. But that was a nice night and a good return for Willie McFall. Our next game was a league game away at Bristol Rovers, and it 7,000 at the game. Everybody here thinks, well, they're struggling around the bottom of the league already. We should get something out of this. Well, we go with the team unchanged. Bill McCarry again, Hardwick, Brownie, Davis, Nick Martin, etc. The only slight difference is that Terry Hibbett's not on the left side. He brings in John Connolly. And Bristol Rovers, well, they have Robert Campbell is an ex-player of theirs, ancient player of theirs, is now their manager. And they have some well-known Welsh internationals and players in their side, some of whom are on their way out. Glyn Jones, their goalkeeper, Stuart Taylor, and at defensive midfield, the name of a man, Tony Pulis, who makes himself famous as a manager much later on and as a pain in the neck for a lot of people in football. It says what he thinks and it comes out loud. It doesn't always suit everybody, but that's Tony in his playing days at Bristol. Gary Mabbitt, who came from Tottenham, and a name we do know is Stuart Barraclough. It's at Bristol Rovers now, and a name we knew well. An even Steven sort of game, with Shoulder putting we ahead in 49 minutes. But then, lo and behold, we go sleeping. Steve White, the dangerous centre forward, scores an equaliser on 77. So we come away with a 1-1 draw. Not what we'd hoped for, but better than a defeat, to put it bluntly. We now have another away game straight away within a few days at Swansea, and we're playing at Swansea, and we go with the same tried and tested team, with the only change is that John Connolly comes in because Peter Cartwright's injured, so we go to Swansea, and again, like a lot of the Welsh teams, they have a lot of ex-internationals, current internationals, a good mixture of young and old. But one name in that side, Tommy Craig, is a name that we know very well, and John Mahoney, who played at Middlesbrough, and very dangerous player on his day on the wing, and Ian Callaghan, who they got from Liverpool. And out on the left for them was a winger called Robbie James, who was supported by Jeremy Charles, the youngest of the Charles family. John Charles and Mel Charles were internationals, but Jeremy didn't reach that standard, unfortunately. But he was still a tidy player. So it was 15,400 at the game, and Swansea. Terry Hibbert puts with the lead in 30 minutes. Bill Rafferty scores 41, and then Jeremy Charles scores on 66, and Alan Shoulder 77 makes it 3-1. And then at the death, Robbie James scores another one to make it 3-2, and gives us quite an uncomfortable final 5 minutes rather, because it was right at the end, and come away with a 3-2 win, which has got everybody really happy. We come home to a home match against Fulham, and we again 23,400 at the game. McGarry again, very loyal. However, this time he brings in Steve Carney at fullback because of injury, and Steve Carney he'd got from Blythe Spartans. Steve went on to have a good career with Newcastle, and I think was more comfortable at centre back than fullback, but he could play either, and so Steve Carney came in there. Fulham, the almost identical team that we played at Fulham. One or two names worth mentioning was Kevin Locke, who was a very tidy and clever midfield player. Tony Gale, who was ex-West Ham. John Beck, another midfield player who made a name for himself. And then also in the forward line, Chris Guthrie, of course, who had played for us with his brother. A good game, an interesting a good football game, and Fulham, I think, were short of a striker. They just couldn't make any impression against Newcastle. Peter With scored it for us on 32 minutes, and then Bill Rafferty sealed the win on 81 minutes with the second goal, and we came away with a 2-0 victory, which sent everybody in the Gallagher corner away home very happy indeed. We're now, believe it or not, got another friendly, and that friendly's at North Shields, and I thought, well, what on earth we're doing a friendly there? But when you look at it, it's a special friendly for them because it's their 50th anniversary, and asked Newcastle to send a team, and they got a 3,000 crowd there. Now, I don't know if any of you out there ever went to Appleby Park, their old ground. It was tiny, and was everybody was right on the pitch, as it were. It was fascinating old ground, but a one that was lovely for a local club to have, and that was the 50th international. I've got to say, just to diverge slightly, in my time as a magistrate at North Tyneside, I only dealt with football hooligans once when I was on the bench, and the hooligans came from North Shields, from Appleby Park. They could have been playing in a cup match, and there'd been some sort of dispute, and quite a lot of lads, the old local lads, had ended up on the pitch. Well, about half a dozen of them ended up on the Monday morning in front of me at the court at North Shields. I would send them home with a flea in that year, to be perfectly honest, is my memory of it. But never mind. Anyway, that was a good event for North Shields, and I'm glad we supported it, because a good local club with some good players. Well, next game that matters is Luton Town. We're away to Luton Town, and of course, aren't they happy at the moment? Gosh, after the weekend, they're in the money, as it were, 170 something million, but never mind. Good luck to them. We'll welcome them and see what comes. But they came. We went to Luton with and still the same ground, Kenilworth Road, and because it was Newcastle and all the fans Newcastle took, even in those days, it was full. There was nearly 14,000 in that ground, which I don't even think they can get that many now because of the new safety regulations. I think it's down to 12 at the moment, but 14,000 in the ground, so it must have been burst at the seams. Anyway, a good game, end-to-end stuff. And David Moss scored for them right on half-time to make it 1-0. And then on 65 minutes, Billy Rafferty scored our equaliser. And that's how it stayed to the end. And our team, well, predictable with Bill McGarry. It's same Hardwick, Brownlee, keeps Carney in, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Cartwright with Rafferty and Hibbert. And with Luton, they have one or two ex-big stars. Mal Donaghy at left back, who's was the big star with Manchester City. Ricky Hill, who was a big star with Fulham and Chelsea. Brian Steen, who was a very dangerous centre forward with Coventry City, and Bob Hatton, who was quite a star with Chelsea for a short while, and injury curtailed his time at Chelsea, but he ended up at Luton. So a 1-1 draw at Luton. It was the important thing as far as we're concerned is we're not losing games because this league is just as it was in previous years, quite cutthroat. So once you start losing, people are on top of you like you don't know what. The next is a home game against QPR. They're not doing very well. They're looking a bit sad, and so everybody's hopeful we might get something out of this game. Bill McGarry again chooses the team that he likes, and he got exactly the same team except that Peter Cartwright's injured and John Connolly comes in. 25,000 at the game, and QPR, well, their team is got a number of players in. Of course, a name that we know very well up here called Glenn Roeder in the team, and David McCreary in the team, and Paul Goddard in the team. All names that we know up here. Anyway, it was an entertaining football match. I remember it's a good game, good football game. And Alan Shoulder gets us off to a super start in 15 minutes. Paul Goddard, would you believe, on 27 minutes equalises. Then on 39, Glenn Roeder, of all people, gives them a 2-1 lead. And after half time, you could sense the nervousness in the Gallagher corner that things weren't quite going where everybody thought it would go. But lo and behold, on 55 minutes, Peter With scored the equaliser. Tommy Cassidy on 80 minutes got put with 3-2. And on 89 minutes, Peter With made it 4-2. To end what was quite an entertaining game in the end, and a one which turned out to be a good victory, and pushing us up well towards the above the middle of the table, which is quite interesting because we're sort of neck and neck with the Mackhams at the moment in the league, which is a surprise to a lot of people. So the next game's an away game at Notts County. It's the Magpies playing the Magpies, and they're playing quite well. So we know it's not going to be easy. 11,200 at the game. In Notts County, still got Jimmy Cyril have got Jimmy Cyril as their manager, and got some ex players, Jeff Blockley from Coventry, David Hunt from Aston Villa, Ian McCulloch from Aston Villa, Don Masson, who came from QPR, but on his way to QPR, he played for Middlesbrough for a few years, and a tidy side and a one that was challenging. So we know it's not going to be easy. However, Alan Shoulder makes it that little bit easier on 30 minutes by giving with the lead. On 20 minutes, Ray O'Brien equalises from a penalty spot. And then lo and behold, 27 minutes, he scores again from a penalty. And it looks like we're going to be struggling in this one. But then on 40 minutes, John Connolly didn't score a lot of goals. But when he did, they're usually very good. And he cut in from the left with, he had a stunning left foot. And it would drive from the corner of the penalty area, which it was so hard, nearly took the net off the post. It was such a hard shot, and gave with an equaliser. And that's the way it stayed till the end, 2-2. After that was a hard-fought draw because Notts County were pushing to get another goal, but we held on, and the next game was another away game at Burnley. The hope here is that we might get something out of this one, because Burnley aren't playing particularly well either. They're 16,000 at Turf Moor. And Brian Miller, the Burnley manager, a Geordie, well, Northumbrian, not a Geordie. He wouldn't like being called a Geordie because he's a Northumbrian. But a team littered with, still even at this time, with people from the northeast, Ian Brennan, Marshall Burke, Ashington lads, Martin Dobson, Durham lad. But intervened in between that, of course, Leighton James, Welsh international, very, very talented winger, dangerous winger. And Billy Hamilton, the Irish international winger, who's to become a great manager. And McGarry sends us there with the same team as usual. The only changes that halfway through the second half, Tommy Cassidy gets injured and Steve Carney's sent on. Other than that, it was a team that McGarry had been picking all the time. 35 minutes, Billy Hamilton puts Burnley in the lead. 39 minutes, was centre-half David Barton from a corner heads to equaliser. And on 47 minutes, Malcolm Smith puts them 2-1 in the lead. And then Martin Dobson on 74 minutes with a penalty puts them 3-1 in the lead. And then on 89 minutes, Alan Shoulder makes it 3-2. And then we lay siege on the Burnley goal is the only way to describe it, but it didn't come off. We end up losing 3-2, and despite everything they tried, they couldn't get the equaliser. But it was an entertaining game and a good football game, as they usually are with Burnley. So there we go. And my next game is a home game against Charlton Athletic. Charlton, a tidy football inside, but they're struggling at the bottom of the league, and everybody's hopeful. Certainly, I know in the Gallagher corner that we should get something out of this game, and I was there. I remember how hopeful everybody was. However, the first half was dour, a 0-0, and it was really poor football. Can't remember any incident in the goal mouth at either end. It really was awful. However, second half we come out and we're much brighter. And Alan Shoulder on 67 minutes gives with the lead. And then on 81 minutes, Tommy Cassidy makes it 2-0. And there was never any danger of Charlton Athletic scoring any goals against it. They were so poor in this match. It was straightforward. And and I hate using the word easy. There's no such thing as an easy football match, but they certainly didn't make life difficult for us. Andy Nelson's still the manager, and the team hardly unchanged. One or two names in that team that are young players coming through. Derek Hales, and Steve Gritt, who became stars with Charlton and moved on to bigger clubs. But they were never ever going to trouble with that afternoon, and we got a 2-0 victory, which was great. We then have a big derby game, and it's big in the sense that Sunderland are now pushing for the top places, and we are just above the middle. But we're still there, and 38,700 at the game, and it's McGarry again, very loyal. Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, Barton, Boehm, Shoulder, Cartwright with Rafferty, Hibbert, and John Connolly as a substitute. Sunderland by now are managed by Ken Knighton, who managed them for a while. Slightly controversial character, but he was there a while, and their team had Chris Turner in goal by now. Steve Whitworth had bought from Leicester as fullback. Joe Bolton, one of their own. Jeff Clark, our ex-centre half. Sean Elliott, Mick Buckley, Kevin Arnott, John Hawley, Pop Robson. Gary Rowell was the substitute, came on for Robson in the second half. And on the left side of the midfield, Stan Cummins, who they had just paid Middlesbrough an absolute fortune for, because they felt that he was the link that would get them promotion. Well, it was a good game. Stan Cummins put them in the lead in 25 minutes, and I could tell by the feeling in the crowd in the Gallagher corner that it looked like we're in for a tough time. And then Peter Cartwright scored. Didn't score a lot of goals for us, but when he did, they were good. And Peter Cartwright scored a right-footed blinder on 39 minutes to give an equaliser. And then on 56 minutes, Tommy Cassidy gets a header at a corner. And then, lo and behold, the Mackems give her a penalty. And who should step up for that penalty but Alan Shoulder had to make it 3-1. And that's how it stayed. 3-1. It was a really good victory, because it wasn't expected by many, including many in the Gallagher corner, I can tell you, because Sunderland were playing well at that time. So everybody went home very happy for that tea that Saturday, and that Tuesday night. It was entertaining, and it was good to see a reasonable crowd as well. The next game is a home game, FA Cup third round against Chester. Now, this is a game which has a lot of personal interest for me, because if you talk to our Neil, he'll tell you that this is the game when he decided he was fastened on football. I can remember my dad, the three of us went together. We had seats in the stand as a treat, and 25,000 at the game. But the game was dominated by the Chester centre forward, a young man called Ian Rush, who actually took us to the cleaners. We couldn't get near him, and he really made our life difficult. And he scored. Peter Henderson scored their first goal in 3 minutes, and in 75 minutes, Ian Rush put the seal on his fantastic, because he was just a teenager, on a fantastic night by scoring the second goal for Chester and dumping us out of the FA Cup. Chester City had Alan Oakes as the manager, but he also played in the team. He was a player manager, and Trevor Staunton in the defence from Everton. John Cottam from Liverpool, Bryn Jones from Liverpool, and Peter Sutcliffe from from Manchester City. So they had a decent team of young mixers of youngs and older people going out. But for them to come to St James's and put us out of the FA Cup, to say that was upsetting is putting it mildly. However, as I say, it was enough to get Owen Neal excited to think that he wanted to do that on a regular basis. And I think if you talk to him, he'll tell you that's the night he decided he was hooked. He was hooked. And now the reaction of the crowd, of course, was not very happy. And unfortunately for Bill McGarry, he didn't take that very kindly. So his response in the press was virtually, well, that's how the cookie crumbles. Well, that didn't go down too well with the Gallagher corner, I can tell you. Anyway, we're off to Chelsea next, at the away game at Chelsea. And having 32,000 at Stamford Bridge and having had that result against Chester, we go to Chelsea with some trepidation because we're not sure what's going to happen. McGarry faithful to the team still, Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, etc. All in. The only difference is Connolly's in instead of Bill Rafferty. Chelsea team is now got a number of youngsters who are now trying to make a name for themselves, like Gary Chivers, captained by Bobber Harris, Ron Harris, of course, Ian Britton, John Bumstead, Clive Walker, Tommy Langley, all young players making a name for themselves. And they're managed, of course, by Jeff Hurst. Now, I don't think many people remember that Jeff Hurst even went into management, but at this time he was Chelsea's manager. Not for very long, I don't think, but he was. But they were playing well and regarded by many as one of the possible promotion candidates. So we go to Stamford Bridge, 32,000 there, and we get a runaround is basically how to describe it. Fillery, 39 minutes. Own goal from Barton on 48 minutes. Clive Walker, 49 minutes. And Tommy Langley, 74 minutes, 4-0. And it was a bad 4-0. It could have been 6 or 7. We really weren't at the races with this game. And left us with a mountain to climb in terms of recovering our reputations after that, and the manager as well, to be perfectly honest. However, our next game is a home game against Leyton Orient, and there's a strong. I mean, the Orient aren't very good. They're near the bottom of the league, and was strides better than them. We should get a result, is the feeling. But as a Newcastle fan, you get used to having feelings that don't come up trumps, unfortunately. Anyway, Orient come with their team, with Jimmy Bloomfield still the manager, and with their ex-stars in Mervyn Day, Tommy Taylor, Bill Ruffy, Ralph Coates, Ian Moores, and Billy Jennings, all former stars filling the team. And they come to St James's on a Saturday, and as a direct result, in my opinion, of the result at Chelsea, the crowd's down to 19,000, which is Newcastle fans saying, well, you can say what you like, Mr. McGarry, we've got to show you that we didn't like that. And that's how they did it, the Stayed at Home. So our team's unchanged. Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, Barton, Bohm, Shoulder, Cartwright with. Carney comes in, and John Connolly for injury. And Orient, as I say, still have their list of stars with them. However, they're no match for on this occasion. It's 0-0 at half-time, but it shouldn't have been. We should have been out of sight by half-time and hit the woodwork so many times. And then on 69 minutes, David Barton headed in a corner. And then on 86 minutes, John Connolly scores one of his left-foot pile drivers to make it 2-0. So we get a 2-0 win, and you can hear the collective sigh of relief in the Gallagher corner when the match is over, to see that we're back going in the right direction. Is is how I'd describe it. The next game is an away game at Leicester. We 24,500 at the game, and Leicester City with Jock Wallace still the manager. The team including Dennis Ruffy, Bobby Smith, Ian Wilson, and a young man making his debut called Gary Lineker, and Alan Young, the former Manchester City player. McGarry, faithful as ever. Hardwick, Davis, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, Barton, Boehm, Shoulder, Cartwright with Steve Carney and John Connolly. And it's a good game. It's some good football, but unfortunately we get off to the worst possible start. Stuart Boehm gives a penalty away in the 4th minute, and Bobby Smith slots it away 1-0. And despite the fact that being end to end, we never looked like scoring, and Leicester just hung on, and 1-0 was an easy win for them. So, as I say, we could have played all afternoon, and I don't think we would have got the equaliser in that game. But nevertheless, good game it was. We then have another away game, and this time we're at Wrexham, and 13,000 at the game, and still Mel Sutton is the player manager, and the former Welsh internationals Gareth Davis, Mel Sutton, Ian Edwards, Mark Vinter, still playing in that team, but they're in trouble. They're near the bottom of the league, so we're hoping we might get a result at the racecourse ground. And despite fielding what has been an almost unchanged team all season, we give a daft goal away on 55 minutes, and it's Mel Sutton that scores it. It's a very poor back pass from John Brownlee, and Mel Sutton latches onto it and makes it 1-0 on 55 minutes. Well, from then on, it's backs to the wall for Wrexham. But despite our best efforts, we could not get an equaliser. And in fact, I think if we played another 90 minutes, we would never have got an equaliser. So we've been to Wrexham, and guess what? We've got a friendly, a Friday night friendly at Dundee. And I checked it is just a friendly to help Dundee's coffers, apparently. 5,000 at the game, which is not a bad turnout for a Friday night in Dundee. And we win 3-1 with Mitchell, Wraith and Rafferty scoring the goals. And it's a good game, but as I say, it's in many ways quite meaningless to us at this stage of the season. And obviously done us a favour for somebody at Dundee, but I don't think they help, but never mind. We're now at a Wednesday night home game against Birmingham City. 27,000 at the game. We're unchanged. Hardwick, Carney, Davis, Cassidy, Boehm, Mitchell. Well, Kelly Mitchell comes in because of injury. Ian Shoulder, Cartwright with Bill Rafferty and John Connolly. Halfway through second half, Bill Rafferty's injured and Alex Cropley comes on. Birmingham City, still Jim Smith is the manager, and Colin Todd still in team, Joe Gallagher, Mark Dennis, Alan Kirbishley, Archie Gemmell, Kevin Dillon, and Don Givens, all well-known names in football, and some of them got even better known to us. It's not a very good game. It's quite, how can I say it, a very dour 0-0. Both teams could have played all night and not put the ball in the back of the net, but at least it was a point and kept going in the right direction as far as we're concerned. It's all that matters. So we're now away to Shrewsbury, and hoping the Gallagher corner is that because we'd turned them over quite well when they were at St James's, that we might do it again. Well, our hopes didn't come to fruition. 10,000 in Gay Meadow for this game, and we went there with an unchanged team, and Shrewsbury Town with Graham Turner still the manager, and one or two new players in that team. David Tong, who they got from Stoke, Ian Atkins they got from Manchester City, and Steve Biggins that they got from Manchester United, ex youth player at Manchester, and they're fighting for their lives. They're right at the bottom, and fighting for their lives. Well, fight for their lives they did. In 40 minutes, Paul Maguire gives them a lead. Jake King makes it 2 at 21 minutes. And on 55 minutes, Steve Biggins makes it 3-0. Then on 84 minutes, almost at the death, Alan Shoulder makes it 3-1. But frankly, we never looked as though we were going to get anything out of this game. It was, in that particular season, probably one of the worst away performances that we made, because they were a team which were struggling, and we didn't seem to recognise that at all. We just let the thing slip, and so we come home now to a home game against Watford, and we, when I say we, I mean the Gallagher Corner basically, are hoping that we can start to recover some of these losses. And Watford's, they're not brilliant, but they're in the middle like we are. They're not far away from us. By now, Graham Taylor is their manager, well-known name to everybody. Eric Steele, a Geordie goalkeeper, and one or two Wilf Roston, ex-Sunderland players, still in that team. Ray Train, a star from West Ham, and Luther Blissett, of course, the centre forward, deadly centre forward. If he got the ball, was in their team. 0-0 at half time, end-to-end stuff, and each team could have scored. Then just on half time, when we were least expecting it, a corner, the ball bounced around in the penalty area like a pinball, and ended up going into our net off our centre half, David Barton, and so that changed the whole attitude of the game right on half time. Come out after the half time, and we seem to be giving it a go, having a real go at this, and then lo and behold, on 80 minutes, Ross Jenkins makes it 2-0 to Watford after a dreadful mistake by Steve Hardwick, who went up for a ball that just wasn't there, and it dropped at Ross Jenkins' feet, and that made it 2-0. So the reception, to say the least, from the St James's Park crowd and the Gallagher Corner in particular was not a very happy one. There was lots of booing and lots of catcalling at McGarry, apparently, from the paddock, and he got quite upset about that, apparently. But as I say, he was thick-skinned. It wouldn't bother McGarry, and he didn't even comment in the press. So the next game is we're away to Cambridge. Now, we'd already had a good result against Cambridge up here, and the hope was that we might replicate that there, or at very least get something out of the game. And we did. Cambridge with their usual team, with John Doherty as their manager, and the odd Spriggs and Raleigh and Finney players who they brought into that team from other big teams like Preston and Birmingham and Aston Villa. But they were scrambling. They were near the bottom and fighting for their lives. So 6,900 at the Abbey Stadium, and Bill McGarry, as he has throughout the season, stayed pretty faithful to his team. Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, Bourne, Bird, Walker, Cartwright, Peter With, Terry Hibbert and Bobby Shinton, who'd got from Manchester City. A 0-0, an interesting 0-0 because it was end-to-end. Either team could have scored, but at the end of the day, neither did. And they both got a point, which helped Cambridge more than it did us. But the important thing for us is we weren't sliding down the league, which was one of the big worries people were having had two quite bad defeats, 3 quite bad defeats in the previous weeks ahead. So our next game is a home game to West Ham United, and there's great deal of hope that we might get something out of this. Same team as usual, Hardwick, Brownlee, etc. And the difference is that Bobby Shinton's now a fixture in the team, having brought him from Manchester City. West Ham, John Lyle still the manager, Phil Parkes, Ray Stewart, Alvin Martin, Frank Lampard Sr., Paul Allen, Trevor Brooking, Alan Devonshire, Stuart Pearson and David Cross. A tidy side who were challenging for the top. But it was an entertaining game, but a 0-0. Whatever either side tried to do, the one thing they couldn't do was actually put the ball in the back of the net, which was quite disappointing. But still, the draw, the 0-0, was a collective sigh of relief to the Gallagher corner, but at least it stopped us sliding down the table, which was would have been something of a disaster. The next game's an away game to Cardiff City. Ninian Park, 9,300 at Ninian Park. Now, that's another big ground. I mean, that's a ground that holds 60,000. So what 9,000 looks like in it, it must have been pretty desperate. Manager still Richie Morgan. Still got Ron Healy and Rod Thomas, Phil Dwyer, Alan Campbell, Billy Ronson, Ronnie Moore, Gary Stevens, all Welsh internationals playing for Cardiff. Now a team Bill McGarry sends, the same team that we've had for virtually the whole season. He juggled things around a little bit, which took people by surprise, and he put Alan Shoulder in midfield, or in those days we would call it an inside right position, because up to then Alan had always either been on the wing or up the middle. But Bobby Shinton being in the side changed a lot of that. And anyway, we went to Cardiff, hopeful that we might get something out of the game, because they're below us in the league and struggling a little bit. But we get the fright, of course, on the 8 minutes. Cardiff get their first goal. Gary Stevens scores for them. But then on 37 minutes, Bobby Shinton scores for an equaliser for Newcastle. And that's the way it stayed for the rest of the game. Entertaining game. Second half was end-to-end, but neither side could put the ball in the net for a winner, and we come away with an away point, which was a sigh of relief for most of us. We then come home to a home game against Bristol Rovers, and 18,900 at this game. And I think the crowd's telling Bill McGarry what to think about him and his team. And also the fact that Bristol aren't necessarily the biggest draw in the league. They're in trouble. So the talk in the Gallagher corner before is how many were going to score, really. That was it. Well, it never pays to do that, because on 44 minutes, Sean Penny's put Bristol Rovers in the lead, 1-0. And we'd been playing so badly, it didn't look like we'd ever score. So after half-time, there were rumblings in the Gallagher corner. I can say that when people were coming to that side of the pitch to take corners, they were getting well and truly catcalled from the Gallagher corner. However, Peter Wyth on 71 minutes and 74 minutes made it 2-1. And then on 84 minutes, Tommy Cassidy sealed the victory on 3-1. And that's where it stayed. The Bristol Rovers team, Harold Jarman is the manager now. Another old player that they brought back in is the manager. Stuart Barrowclough, Gary Maddox still in that team. Tony Pulis, of course, still in that team. And Sean Penny, very dangerous left winger who scored the early goal. So the 3-1 win against Bristol. And as I say, collective sigh of relief from the Gallagher corner now that we're going in the right direction. We're not going down towards the bottom of the league. At least we're making our way up the league. And we have another home game very shortly afterwards on the Wednesday against Notts County. Magpies versus Magpies again. And they're slightly above us and been playing well. And so there's a little bit of nervousness around about what's going to happen in this game. Well, nervousness there should be, because we're on 31 minutes. Trevor Christie puts Notts County in the lead. But it doesn't last long, because on 33 minutes, Tommy Cassidy equalises. And on 43 minutes, Alan Shoulder puts us 2-1 in the lead. And it looks like we're going to go to a 2-1 victory, which would be great. However, typical Newcastle, we get right to the end of the game, the last kick. On these papers, even, it says 90 minutes plus 2. So we're into injury time well and truly when Notts County get their equaliser from a corner, which is mishandled by Steve Hardwick, which not the first time you've done that, but it's 2-2, and it when you're in the Gallagher corner and it's like that, and the goal is a sloppy one. It feels like a loss. It feels like we lost the game, and so the reaction of the crowd was quite harsh in some ways, but difficult. The 2-2 draw was better than nothing. It's interesting. In the Notts County team on that day was a gentleman called Brian Kilcline, who we were to get to know much more closely later in his career. The next game is the away derby match at Sunderland, and it's a big one to them, because they're now firmly in the top 2, and indeed had they not lost to us in the match at St James's, they probably would have been top of the league. So we really dented their season away. So we go to Roker Park, 41,700 at the game, and Ken Knighton's still the manager, Chris Turner goalkeeper, Jeff Clark still in that team, Rob Hindmarsh, Kevin Arnott, Gary Rowell, Pop Robson, Stan Cummins, still a star man, and playing like a star man. Bill McGarry sends the tried and tested team: Hardwick, Carney, Davis, Cassidy, Bourne, Barton, Shoulder, Peter Cartwright, Peter With, Terry Hibbett, and Bobby Shinton. It's a good game. I remember being at this game, and it was a good game, end-to-end stuff, and it looked like we're going to get a draw out of it. But on 73 minutes, Stan Cummins showed why Sunderland paid the huge fee to get him from Middlesbrough. He wasn't a big bloke, but very clever, very quick feet. And he just ran through our defence, beat about 4 defenders before slotting the ball home underneath Hardwick. I always think in my mind's eye, when I think about that goal, if he'd been playing now, somebody would have brought him down before he got to the 4th defender. He probably would have got brought down by the 3rd defender. But Stan Cummins was clever, and he slotted it home and made it 1-0, and that's how it stayed. However, because of the way they were playing and because of where they were in the league, it wasn't regarded as an absolute disaster, but still wasn't enjoyed, obviously, by our supporters. Next game is a home game against Burnley. The previous game had been a good game, good football match, and everybody anticipated this would be the same. Only 18,000 at the game, but that reflects the previous results more than anything. And Brian Miller still there, their manager, with the usual sprinkling of Jories, Alan Stevenson, Jimmy Thompson, Steve McAdam, Malcolm Smith, all in the team. But so were Leighton James and Billy Hamilton, and established internationals playing at the high level. So Burnley were quite a good side, and were in the top half of the season of the league. A good game, good football. Ian Davis from a corner puts us ahead in 27 minutes, and it looks like we might sneak a 1-0 victory, but Burnley laid siege to our goal in the second half, and it was inevitable that sooner or later somebody would get the look to get a goal, and it was Billy Hamilton who slotted in the equaliser on 73 minutes. After that, I've got to say, my memory is that it was a backs to the wall game for Newcastle. They struggled to get through to the end with the draw, but get the draw they did, and that was very, very important to us. Our next game is at Fulham. Is an away game at Fulham, and they're middle of the table. Well, not even middle of the table. Not playing very well. So everybody's hoping at least we'd get a point out of this game. Craven Cottage, 7,100 there, and Bob Campbell, ex-player, still a manager. Usual stars in it: Tony Gale, Les Strong, Kevin Locke, John Beck, Ray Lewington, who was part of the England's setup for a lot of years as a physiotherapist, and Terry Maybank and Gordon Davis. Our team almost unchanged: Hardwick, Brownlee, Davis, Cassidy, Bohm, Bird, Shinton, Ferguson, Rafferty, Hibbert, and he stuck Alan Shola on the left side. And first half was 0-0, and we give as good as we got. And second half, everybody was hopeful that we might come out and do something, but unfortunately, on 83 minutes, a mistake in the defence let their left-sided player, the attacker Gordon Davis, through, and he tapped in an easy goal to give Fulham the 1-0 victory. Disappointing, because they played well in that match, but not well enough to get anything out of it, unfortunately. Fulham, of course, heave a sigh of relief because they're at the wrong end of the table, and it was a big help to them. So we're now the Gallagher corner's disappointed because we're now slipping down towards the wrong end of the league. Our chances of being in the top 3 or 4 are long gone. So we're hoping that we can hang on to the middle if we can. The next game is a home game against Swansea, and 14,300 at St James's Park. And that crowd tells you what people think about our results and about how we're playing more than as much as anything. And but everybody's hopeful that we might get something out of this match against Swansea. McGarry's loyal to his team. Hardwick, Brownlee, brings Kenny Wharton in, Tommy Cassidy, David Barton, Steve Carney, Bobby Sinton, Rafferty, Hibbert, Shoulder, Peter Cartwright. So Swansea come with a new manager, John Toshak. There's a name to conjure with, ex-Liverpool and Welsh international centre forward. Got the usual mixture of young and old players, with Jeremy Charles, of course, Alan Waddle and Ian Callaghan, who Toshak had persuaded to join them from Liverpool. John Mahoney, Leighton Phillips, Nigel Stevenson, Wyn Evans, all Welsh internationals. But a tidy side that Toshak put together. In fact, so tidy that Nigel Stevenson scored in the second minute for them. We equalised to Alan Shoulder, a penalty on 17 minutes. And then David Giles on 54 and 59 minutes made it a 3-1 win to Swansea. And again, received by the St James's Park crowd with a rousing chorus of boos. I mean, really was some desperate catcalling going on off the pitch. The next game is an away game at QPR, and they're just above bottom, and so hopeful of something might happen. 11,000 at Loftus Road, with Tommy Docherty's now their manager, character. Don Shanks, Glenn Roeder in the back line, Steve Wicks from Chelsea, David McCreary in the midfield, Tony Curry that they got from Stoke, Paul Goddard up front, all names that are well known, Gordon Hill, but they're still at the wrong end of the table. So we're hoping that something might come out of it. McGarry's faithful to his squad, but he brings in young Brian Ferguson for an outing, and it turns out to be that wasn't a bad idea, because within 3 minutes, not only was he making his debut, he was scoring his first goal in the second division on 3 minutes, and everybody thought, well, we're going to get a victory here. Well, we hadn't counted on two people who we know very well turning it over. Firstly, Glenn Roeder, and then the second back, David McCreary, on 77 minutes, 46 minutes, 77 minutes. And that was QPR giving it 2-0, a 2-1 victory, which was a big help to them, because it got them off the bottom. I don't think it actually saved them, though, but never mind. It was still an interesting game. The final game of the season was a home game against Luton. And Luton are struggling, and everybody's hopeful that we might at least get something out of the game. As you can imagine, oh gosh.
You okay, George?
I've lost the picture. I think it's gone into standby, unfortunately.
We can still hear you, George. So if you start
Okay.
if you start again, just the final game of the season, that's where we lost you.
Right. Okay. Well, final game of the season was home game against Luton Town, and the fact that the Luton weren't playing well meant that everybody hoped to get it. Well, we didn't get a victory. We had another miserable draw, 2-2 draw, which left the home crowd furious, and we're a small crowd, 13,000, which was quite devastating on the match. We ended the season on 9th place, and should have been better than that, but everybody hoped that that this would be a baseline for the next year. But people weren't happy with McGarry. There's no doubt about it that McGarry was under pressure, because his attitude to criticism was always, well, I'm the boss, I'll make the decisions, and that didn't go down very well. So a fairly ordinary season in many ways. One or two nice things with young players coming through that McGarry took the chance with. So it, as I say, a baseline for the future. So that was 79-80, and I'm sure we've got better ones to come.
Certainly have, George. As always, mate, absolute pleasure to sit and listen to you take us through a season.
Thank you.
I look forward to the next one, mate.
Okay, Steve. Good to see you as always, and thanks for watching, everybody. Do appreciate it.
Take care, George. Bye-bye.
Okay, bye.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. A big thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. You can find them at their website, mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to place an order, call 01768 210 102 or email info@mrvickies.co.uk. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the help with the video side of things, and to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guys who run our website, NUFCmatters.com. If you like the channel, please hit the like underneath the video. It helps us grow. And click share and share to your other social media. If you want to help us financially, please click join. And there's a range of different packages, and it explains how you can do that. If you want to become a cult member and receive these goodies, a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw, for a one-off fee of £25, simply go to nufcmatters.com and find cult membership. If you've got a smartphone, put it over this QR code now. It'll take you straight there. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. The Matchday Bucket helps you donate virtually. Go to nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk to find out more. We've got some events coming up over the course of the next 12 months. An evening with John Anderson takes place at the Tynemouth Surf Cafe. Only limited tickets available. 13th of June. Go to their website to buy tickets. Bend it like Bobby. Cometh the hour, cometh the man. And just after the hour, the man did cometh at the double, as it was time to bend it like Bobby. It's a comedy play. It's a rehearsed reading by Jim Orr. It features myself and a few other cast members. Friday the 16th of June. Tickets on sale at newcastlelegends.com, and they're only £5. An evening with Frank Clark. Well, this is our Christmas do. Thursday, December the 7th. Tickets are £15 from nufcmatters.com at the Tyneside Irish Centre. And a big one for the new year, January the 25th. Keegan, Waddle and Beardsley and special guests back together, the class of 1984, at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road. Tickets available direct from the venue. If you like T-shirts and you want a few for the summer, get yourself to nufcmatters.com. The Isaac T-shirt is proven very popular.